Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Struggling Hunters. I am Eric,
I'm Joe.
and we are the Struggling Hunting Fools. uh, with that out of the way, though, Joe, let's get right into it. And how'd your weekend of hunting go?
It was a struggle.
Yeah.
Uh, it was good. It was a great learning experience. So I went to a whole new area that was out of my deer hunting zone. It was strictly an elk hunt, and it was for a spike elk or a cow elk. I hunted this area last year. I knew it. I know it a little bit. Guy at work told me about it. So a little bit of help there, which is huge. uh, but so one of the areas I chose. So I kind of just go through how, I don't know if it was right or wrong, but I was trying to actually think about the area I was hunting. I chose a draw, and then from that, I was on a ridge that was north and south facing, and then that ridge, had draws going off of it that then turned into, east and west facing slopes, and so I chose to go on the east facing slopes to hunt, and then the reason I did that, and as was because after looking at my Onyx and on my topo, as I stood at the kind of the top of this bowl and trying to decide if I want the west facing or the east facing, I looked at the topo and looked to see which one was the steepest and which one was not as steep. Because knowing that elk kind of like benches to sleep, to lay on, and that and whatnot. So anyways, so I decided to go on this east facing slope because it had a lot more of a gradual decline, and it had a few more benches along in it. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna head down this, and then I told myself in my head too, like, I'm gonna keep kind of heading deeper to the bottom of this ravine until I cross elk sign, and then once I hit elk sign, I'll kind of start going, horizontal along with the elk sign. And as I started heading down, I found an old tree stand that someone made back in the day. One of the trees was dead in it, so it was like made out of 3 trees, and one of them was dead. So I doubt anyone really uses it anymore. If they do, I don't know how smart it is because one tree's dead.
Yeah. That's kind of a cool find, though.
Yeah. And then just kind of around the corner from that, there was like this little spring marshy area that had a trail camera set up on it.
Hmm.
I almost put up a little sign, I was like, hey, how's it going? Good luck. But I left it alone, went on down, kept heading down. And then I finally came across, what I found first were elk beds. And then I guess I'm assuming they're elk beds. They could have been any kind of beds, but and it looked like there was whatever laid in it, peed in it too, because there was I could tell where there was something liquid that dried up, and
Okay.
so then I hit that spot, and I almost sat there for a little bit, thinking, like, it was getting kind of close to dark, so I was like, oh, maybe they'll start coming back up in here to bed, which is probably what I should have did, but I don't really know if that was right or not. But so I kind of dropped down just a little bit beneath that, down the hill from it, and I kept going side hill in it. And then I got into a lot more uh, I guess elk droppings, and there wasn't anything super fresh, or I guess I shouldn't really say because it's hard to really say how old elk sign elk droppings are, but they were more clustered up and not so much stringed out. They're coming out as a rock or a log or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And but I just kind of stayed along that elevation where I was finding that, which was kind of cool in a way because I was seeing sign. And as I was going along, I was stopping, checking my wind. The wind wasn't perfect, but it was still kind of blowing. It was blowing downhill, so my scent was getting blown down, but it was kind of still getting blown behind me. Like the wind was almost in my face, but not really, but still going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And so the road system is on top of, so segue, the road system's on top of the canyon. And so I got to hunt down. So, the elk are going to be down in the canyons, not up on the tops, because that's where everybody gets to drive to.
Right. That makes sense.
And so anyways, back to my story. I'm hiking along, and then I'll stop, and I'm, pull my binoculars, try to look in front of me, trying to, spot something before it spots me. Well, I'm not the sneakiest guy in the woods. As I was going along, trying to be quiet, it's hard. I heard something move, and it so then I looked up and saw its butt, or saw a butt, whatever, I don't know. So the way that it sounded, it sounded, how like a mule deer will kind of will jump,
Yeah.
and then that's what the sound sounded like, was a mule deer jumping. It's one little, like a little mound or pound or mounding. I don't know what the proper word is, but it's first little jump. So
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a deer. But then as I saw its butt disappear into the shrubbery, uh, it kind of, the coloring looked like an elk, but it wasn't a big elk if it wasn't elk, but it had more of the tan color rump.
Right.
But it disappeared. I didn't even hear which way it went. But so then I kind of just stayed along the same elevation, and kept working down the ridge, or to the end of the ridge that I was on. And as I got past that point, I thought it was gunshots. I could just hear this, like this crack, and there's a couple cracks, and then there was some other type of rustling in the bush, but it was further away. Like it wasn't like I can't say how close or how far it was, but it was further than 100 yards. It was a ways out there. That's interesting. It almost reminded me of that crack and stuff that we heard last year on the other side of that ridge from us. We're like, oh, there's something big over there.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me of. And so I keep working my way down, and then I started hearing bugles.
Really?
Yeah, and it was kind of, at first I was like, oh, that's just some dude bugling, like it didn't sound like to what we're used to hearing on YouTube and movies or whatever, people blowing a bugle in a competition. This thing sounded horrible. Like it eventually sounded like a bugle, but like, I was like, dude, that doesn't sound like anything like what we try to do,
Yeah.
Like it has to be some dude. And so finally I make my way and get in this little bit of a clearing, and I can look across, and there's this clearing across the canyon, the ravine from me. That's a pretty good sized clearing. And I can see this elk. And he's just, he's working his way in this clearing. He's bugling, and like, holy cow, that's not some dude.
Yeah.
And but I was making, so I was starting. I was like, well, there's the clearing up in front of me. I'm going to work into that and kind of sit on that clearing for a little bit. And so, it takes me a little bit to get to this clearing. Meanwhile, this bull's bugling, and I finally get to the clearing. Oh, before I get to the clearing, I had a deer bust me. I never saw the deer, but it was a doe, and it did that. Their little, like, hot air expressions.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it was
yeah.
blowing at me and stuff, and I never saw it, but I feel like I was fairly close to it. But anyways, I make my way to this clearing, and I set up and I start looking the other side, and it was kind of fun. It was, and also kind of interesting, because he was roughly the same elevation as me, just straight across.
Huh.
And there I could see two bulls. I put one picture of the one bull I could get a picture of on our Instagram and Facebook page. But
At the Struggling Hunters, if you're wondering.
yeah, at the Struggling Hunters. And so what was interesting was, I don't know if it's just because it's barely getting into the rut season, like the rut just isn't quite full swing. So the one that was bugling was a bigger one. The one that I got the picture of that's in that I posted, he was a smaller, like he was still, he's not a big bull, but didn't look as grand as this other one. And he was just sitting there chewing and eating grass. And the other bull was bugling and going off and, just having a heyday. And he kind of walked right past this bull and left that bull alone. And he went off into the woods and kept hollering. And then a little bit later, I don't know if someone else was hunting them or what, but I could hear one other bull go off kind of away from where that bull was. And I feel like I could hear one third bull that was coming down deeper into the canyon.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I sat there and watched them until I couldn't anymore. And then, but kind of a takeaway from that, a little bit, if I had time, I would have made my way over. But thinking back on it too, I kind of wonder if I should have dropped as far down into the ravine that I was in, and then made my way down to the bottom. I mean, it would have been a longer hike out, but where all the traffic is on the top side of the mountain, that's where the road system is. So that forces the elk down to the bottom. I wonder if I should have just went along the bottom of it, because that's more or less where the elk were going to be, and just try to be sneaky Joe going through the woods.
Right.
But then one of the mornings, I got up, tried to make my way out to this point, and it's almost, it's light enough that you don't need a flashlight anymore. And and I heard something go off, and I was like, oh, that's nothing. And I kept going, and all of a sudden I heard this other thing. I was like, oh, that's an elk. So I check the wind, and all right, the wind's good. So I start making my way towards it, and then I hear a sound again, and it's sheep.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So I was like, well, there goes. I won't go that direction anymore, because they had the sheep dogs and stuff with them. I heard the dogs barking, and I never saw the sheep, or maybe it was an elk that was answering the sheep. I don't know. But I probably should have kept going to find out for sure.
Well, at least you're getting into the elk, though. I mean, you might not be exactly where you want to be, but at least you're getting in there. I was going to ask you that area that you went, is that still actually well, is it still just your where you can only get a spike or a cow, or is it?
Yeah, it's only a spike or cow unit for me.
Okay.
So yeah, the big bulls, like the only thing is we kind of think where the bulls are, if the rut's starting up, there'd be cows also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Almost. That was actually my other question. Was there any cows around those two bulls?
yes, there was one cow that I could see. She was in the woods. I was kind of amazed myself that I even found her.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she was in the trees, and it wasn't like this big opening she was in. She, like there was trees spotted around, and she was standing by one, and there just happened to be an opening where she was, and there's one of those like scanning. Oh, there's an elk.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, so that was it's kind of interesting. He was in a so to describe where the bulls were at. They're, like I said, directly opposite of me, roughly the same elevation, but they were in a saddle, or kind of, it was a flat spot. Like the ridge came down and it dropped dramatically. It came down and then it leveled out and then it dropped down again. And they were just sitting right there at that base of that little foothill was in that ravine. It wasn't little, but compared to the ridge it was on, it was little.
Yeah.
It was a good little bench that they were sitting on. I thought it was interesting that, the one bull didn't care what that other bull was bugling. It was torching off, doing its thing, and that other bull just sat there and ate the whole time. So I don't know quite what the story is there, but it was no fight. You thought maybe he knew where he was in the pecking order or something.
Yeah, that I was almost wondering if there were just a couple satellite bulls running together or something, maybe.
It could be, but like I said, that one bull, he was a good looking bull.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting.
So that leads me to like my next dilemma. My next what's the proper word? I guess for a hunter, it's kind of a big question in a way. Like, so I've tripped over elk last weekend, and then this coming weekend I'm taking some time off of work, but I would want to go chase I shouldn't say chase. I'm going to take whatever legal comes in front of me, but I want to go to any bull unit. So that way, whatever spike or branch antlered or cow comes across my way, I'll be able to harvest.
Right.
But I haven't been there this whole season, and I've only talked to a handful or talked to a person, and they said they've seen elk, but I don't know.
It's kind of a risk. You haven't really scouted that area.
No.
Yeah.
And I haven't hunted this area in archery season. I've hunted this area in the rifle season, and I've come across elk, and I've hunted with people that come across elk in the area, but I haven't this early in the season. So with that being said, is it good? Is it wrong? I'm not, I guess it's just one of those, I want to take that risk of shooting a branch antlered bull, but willing to take whatever legal presents itself to me. It's not like I'm wanting to go after Godzilla in the unit. I just would like the opportunity for a branch antlered bull if one's presented itself to me, but I want to fill my tag, so I want to take whatever legal crosses my way.
Yeah.
My path.
Yeah. Well, that is kind of a tough dilemma, but I mean, I kind of see where you're at, where I feel like if you go to the general area where you can pretty much harvest anything, you have quite a bit of chances, because you could have the chance for the trophy size bull, or you could have a chance for a cow or a spike, just whatever kind of crosses your path. The path of least resistance. I mean, it's kind of I would go for it. I mean, I know I see the challenges, because you're already in a spot where they are, as of last weekend, and but you didn't see nothing necessarily shootable besides maybe that cow
Right.
because you couldn't because you can only do a spike only in that unit, but just for that chance, or I mean, whenever it's go time and there's a cow right in front of you, I mean, I'm just kind of talking for me, but I'd probably go for the cow, but just for that small chance or opportunity that there might be a pretty good sized bull that you might be chasing down, I mean, I would go for kind of.
Right.
I mean, you just I think it's just natural to want to go for that. So
Right.
if it was me, I'd probably do the same move, or you know. Now,
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, I'd be like, oh, I should have went back to that other
I
spot.
know. That's what I'm gonna say too.
Yeah.
Dang it! I left elk to go find elk.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't blame you for the move though, because I feel like I would do the same thing just for that slim chance that you might actually run into a decent sized bull.
And it's kind of funny too, and not funny, but it kind of it's fun. It was where that was the only weekend I spent trying to chase the elk. I came across the elk at least, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So you've kind of transitioned because for the last handful of podcasts, we've kind of focused on mule deer, and but you've kind of transitioned over to elk, I take it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I probably should have transitioned to elk the opening weekend that when you were up here should have gone into the elk area. Now they're looking at it
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
year.
Next year, exactly. Um. Yeah. So I feel like I know I've asked you a million times, but is your mule deer hunt pretty much up right now?
The general season ends this my mule deer general season and my general archery season bull or elk, they both end on the same day.
Oh, okay, and that's like September 9th or
The
something.
11th.
11th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so they both end, but then
But then I can transition into the late season.
the late season, and then the late season, is that still mule deer and elk?
If correct, if I didn't fill my tags, like I can do both.
You could still do both. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of always in this weird position where like you might be transitioning to hunt elk, but then if there's a decent bull right in front of you, you'll take it, or a decent buck rather,
Right.
you'll take it. That's hard. That's hard because like you're trying to focus on one animal. Because I kind of felt like we were focusing on mule deer whenever we went, or whenever we were hunting together. We were definitely focused on mule deer, but then like every time we saw elk sign, we'd get all jacked and, oh man, what could this be? And it was kind of the same thing, like kind of confusing ourselves because we'd be focused on mule deer, but then we'd see an elk sign and almost kind of want to figure out that elk, so.
True. Yeah. So, but now it's the rest of the hunt till the end of the general season is just going to be focused on I guess elk.
Yeah. It's kind of like a negative and a positive at the same time to like have two tags in your pocket.
Right.
I mean, but you know how, I mean, last year that happened. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. That happened to me. I saw a decent mule buck. I could have probably got a shot off on it, but I didn't have a tag for a, for a mule deer. So I was like, well, just said hi.
Right.
I couldn't do nothing, and I was like, man, this blows. Like, I wish I could,
Right. Yeah. No, that's have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so yeah, that's winding down. Those hunts will be coming to an end. I'll be doing the paperwork to try to do the late season. then I'll be looking up, what areas that I can hunt the late season in for both elk and deer. Hopefully just the deer. I'm hoping just a deer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully you get the elk here soon, and then you can just focus on one animal after that.
yeah,
Well, that'll be nice though, because you'll hit the rut for the mule deer too, right? Or
I guess I could. Yeah, could I? Oh, when is it? The end of October
yeah,
or the beginning of November into kind of a little bit into December, I think.
thanks. Yeah, I think so.
Man, yeah. So, yeah, I might be able to do some of that. That might be kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah, might up your chances.
True. So what? So I know I went out hunting this last weekend. Did you do anything to, I guess, to get ready for the rifle hunt?
Yeah, I did a couple things. Went out and so Saturday I went out and plinked the 22, not my rifle or anything, but me and my son went out and we made a little content around it just to have fun. We did that, and then uh, Sunday we did a little over a 4 mile hike, just trying to. So it's kind of selfish of me, and I wish I would have prepared better. I was doing a little bit of stuff around the neighborhood. We have a park right across the road, and there's a nice walkway. But before I went hunting with you, I was doing that. I was trying to do it as much as possible, but on average, it ended up to be about like 3 days a week at best. And I was doing that to try to get in whatever, hunt shape I could. But then after hunting with you and like, it kind of like opened my eyes. I'm like, okay, I got a lot of training to do before my hunt, because the one thing with my hunt, especially only being 9 days long, and actually it'll probably only be 8 days for me because the last day is a Monday and I'll have to get back to work. But with that said, uh, I don't want to fatigue. I want to just hunt hard and and uh, and try not. I just don't want to fatigue. I mean, it might happen toward the middle where I might one day might just be a really relaxed hunt day, but I want get back into it the next day. I mean, that's my goal or that's my plans. But anyways, I say all that because so I've been trying to do a lot more hiking and doing that walking around the park and jogging a little bit here and there. I've been doing a lot more of it, trying to get in better hunting shape so I don't get fatigued during my hunt. And so yeah, me and my son did a 4 mile hike the other day. It felt really good. We did pretty good. I mean, it took us a couple hours, but we just walked it. We didn't try to jog or anything. We weren't even in big hurry, just kind of had fun, got through it, and it was really good. It was really good. And Carter did pretty good. He's probably going to come up with me those first couple days. And
Cool.
I've said it before, but he's only 8, but I kind of have a goal with him. Like, I mean, I like to hunt with him anyways, just because I mean he's my little dude, man. He's my guy. So
Right.
I like to hunt with him anyways, but I also have another goal that by the time he's gets his hunter safety and he's able to get his elk tags, I'd really like to see him be pretty successful, and I feel like kind of training him up and getting him prepared for whenever he is 12 instead of just kicking him out there whenever he's 12 and trying to hunt. He'll know what's going on. I feel like I've said that before in the podcast, but that's kind of my little goal for him. And so I took him on that hunt because I told him, I said, hey, this year is like we can't be slowing down. Like we're going to have to hunt hard. And so I was like, I'm taking you on this 4-mile hike. And, he was down though. And he did really good. And, whenever we go hunting, I mean, I don't think we'll push it as hard. Like whenever we're hiking like that, like the challenge is to do the hike, try to get it done as fast as you can. Like I said, we weren't running or anything, but we were, walking at a good pace, walking up and down the terrain. And, uh, yeah, we did that in 2 hours, but in all honesty, I think whenever we're hunting, like we'll be walking a little slower. So it'll actually, in some cases, it'll be easier for them whenever we're actually out there hunting. We might cover that amount of miles in a day or in the morning or something, but it'll probably be stretched out a little bit longer than what me and him did it. Like I said, it took us about 2 hours to do 4 miles. Every mile got a little slower. I was keeping track on it on my GPS or my run app or whatever it's called. And yeah, started out like the first mile was like 20 minutes, pretty fast. Then it got to like 25, then 30, then 30. Like it was like pretty much 5 minutes longer each mile. Whatever makes it last 2 hours anyway. But he did good though. He was strong. He was pretty strong, and I'll probably do that with him a few more times before my hunt comes up and try to get his legs strengthened up for the hunt and my legs too. I mean, I'm trying to get in shape also. So, but yeah, that's the main focus right now is I just don't want to get fatigued. And so, a lot of fun, we took a few pictures, put it on Instagram at the Struggling Hunters, in case you're wondering.
What is that again, Eric?
At the Struggling Hunters. Thanks for asking, actually.
Who are we, Eric?
We're the Struggling Hunters.
And where do you find us?
Instagram and Facebook.
At what?
At the Struggling Hunters.
Thank you.
Yeah. Remember, it's at the Struggling Hunters. It's pretty easy.
It might be a little bit of a struggle to find us, but
yeah. And hey, if you look down in the description on either platform, if you scroll down in the description, it'll make it even easier for you as you can click the link down there in the description and you'll find us on Facebook or Instagram at the Struggling Hunters. That was probably the biggest shameless plug ever. But hey, we're also struggling podcasters, and we're trying to make it somewhere. So give us a break.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Well, I'm glad that you guys had a good weekend though.
Yeah.
You got out and if anything, helping Carter see distance. Like
yeah.
Compare. I'm sure you'll be watching your Onyx or your Run app to see how many miles you did, so that way in the woods when you have Carter with you and you be like, dude, Carter, like this is where we're at and this is what we did that one time, remember that?
Yeah.
So
well, one of the claims to fame with Carter, and by no means was it an easy feat, but when my boy was 4 years old, we went on a hunt. And this took all day long. So, and there was some tough moments in there for sure for both of us. I had to carry his weight, and he's not the heaviest kid, especially at 4. He wasn't the heaviest kid back then, but when you're trying to throw him up a face of a cliff or a mountain and trying to get him up on top of this trail, he gets pretty heavy. Anyway, I say all that because the first time I ever really took him out, I didn't know what we were getting into, but I went with a buddy of mine, and we did 12 miles in one day, hiking in the mountains. And so I know he's capable of it. The biggest thing is there was a lot of stopping and a little, some TLC back then. So now that he's 4 years older and, he's getting a little bigger and stronger, the biggest thing is like, I don't want him holding me up as much. I mean, I'm not trying to sound mean or anything, but I want him to understand what it is, and that he has to, get a little grit behind him to keep up. And so with the hikes like that, and hopefully that'll kind of give him that idea of like, I got to keep pushing, and so whenever the hunt comes, I'm not sitting there, tending to him as much. I can focus on the actual hunt and not so much him.
Gotcha.
So
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, it was kind of fun. It was pretty fun. Um, I know you had a question. Do you remember what your question was earlier? I was gonna say, but I couldn't remember
Well,
exactly.
so I probably should have started off my hunt talk about this, but so one of the questions was I was going to do is, leaving elk to find elk. But the other thing too is after, having a couple weekends to hunt, and as we've we've discussed topics of what to do, where to look for, or what to look for. Um, I feel like it's hard to find that ideal situation when you're out there hunting. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, I got to look for this, got to look for this, and then I can't say that I'm looking for each of those situations, but like where I found the sign, like I guess I found where they were bedding. I guess that's the number one thing I got to remember is I found where they were bedding, not where they were feeding. But what I'm trying to get to is I don't like. I hope people don't think I'm trying to come across as some like magnificent hunter doing this podcast. Like that's I get out there and it's like I get kind of overconfident. Like, oh, I'm gonna go come across my elk or my deer. It's all gonna work out. But yet, there's all these little moments that come up and humble you. Like, we started out that weekend we hunted together. I felt like I had a decent plan, but we got into it and we started just bumping areas because nothing held the sign that we were looking for. And so like everything I was doing, like, I was like, well, all right, let's go to this next area. Let's go to this next area. Let's go to this next area, to where finally the third day, the last day we were there, we find this somewhat honey hole. And then, we could see that there was ton of elk sign in it. And there was ton of deer sign in it. And then, so like, I go back to next weekend and I just run into, I got onto two different bucks. And at the same time, it's like, well, why wasn't I smart enough to find this the first day? Or, like, it's just, all these little humbling moments that kind of chalking up to becoming a better hunter. But yeah, so anyways, like like, it's just fascinating, this journey on becoming a better hunter when you think you're a hunter.
Yeah, yeah. I got a couple things to that, because I completely understand. Um I mean, what makes a hunter, and I mean, if you get your tags and you go out, are you considered a hunter, or I mean, where is it that you're like a decent hunter, a good hunter? I mean, where's the guidelines to that? But I would say, like, for both of us, like, we've hunted all of our lives. We've had our successes, we've had our failures. Um, I think that for the last few years, transitioning to, I mean, we're always doing different mountain ranges. I feel like some people kind of, they find their spot over the years and they always go back to that same spot. And especially after they've been successful, a lot of people probably doing what you do and go to different units, mountain ranges, whatever the case may be, until they start, until they get that success and they go, okay, this worked, I'm going to go back. Um, it's really hard. I mean, yeah. And the one thing, even if I feel like, even if this podcast, like through this podcast, over the years, we're like, yeah, got another bull this year or whatever, and this podcast grows or whatever, like to sit there and call myself a great hunter is just like, it doesn't seem, because to go off of what you said, the woods will humble you. I mean, they humble me every time. That's why I like it though, too, because it's like, I feel like, in town, the living in the rat race, work, family, kids, sleep, work, family, kids, sleep, BS outside of that. And then,
Right.
but like you go out to the woods and you just like, it humbles you and it centers you and it makes you like appreciate so much more to life than, you know, what normal civilization does. And, yeah, that feeling of like the questioning everything you do, just like whenever me and you went a couple weekends ago, I mean, I was just like, the extra pack guy that was going to try to film the successful shot. And I had a big head about everything. I mean, I knew how hard you've been working at getting over there and scouting. And I seen the pictures that you were seeing, mule deer and I mean, just everything was like really aligning. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a layup here. We're going to get in there and get our animal and get out and make a cool video with it and give each other high fives. And, success is really coming our way. And we got up there and we were humbled. We were humbled big time. And, it's just the way it is. I think that's the goal and the challenge to all this is just trying to figure out these public hunts and that's the other thing to consider too, is it's all public land. And I mean, I think I've said this before, but I feel like sometimes whenever somebody's hunting private, they're like, seems like all the deer are on the public land. And then if you're hunting public land, all the deer are on the private, so depending on your perspective, like it just doesn't, I mean, deer are going to be where they're going to be, and elk too. And I mean, that's the fun of it. And that's the excitement of the whole game. And I feel like every time I come up a little short, I go, okay, where did I go wrong? How could I have done better? Where could I have improved? And then I go back at it the next year and try again. And I I think the biggest thing to all that is like, I mean, to be a professional hunter is kind of a stretch in a way, like I don't, I mean,
Especially when you're doing it on your own and trying to, like for us, that's kind of where this platform of our podcast was built around, was us trying to become a better hunter and, talking about our struggles and trying to better our struggles to maybe, the struggles that we're dealing with now, we can get over those hurdles and move on to other hurdles that are in the way to, slowly take down that wall to make us better, to allow us to become better hunters.
exactly. And just talking about, there's a lot more things like in our situation right now, and who knows how long it'll be this way, but we have jobs, we have lives that we have to always get back to. So like going back to our hunt, we went out, we hunted hard Saturday, Sunday, and even Monday, but it wasn't until Monday until we like saw some glimmer of hope. But then what happened? We had to get back, we're like, well, got to go back to work. So
Right.
I ran out of time here, you know, and so, I mean, you know, that's part of the process. That's the whole thing of trying to become better hunters. And I guess like this podcast, I mean, that's the biggest thing is we've never ever claimed that we were great at this stuff. We just love this stuff. And through the through talking and doing the podcast and trying to remember things that we've learned through the podcast, and you know, it was our way of trying to become better hunters, being more immersed in the sport. And you know, some of it is like the kind of getting out. I mean, it's kind of within hunting, but kind of like the podcast portion of this was like, hey, if we could document our struggles and how we finally start getting successful, you know, some of these people that want to give us a try and give us a listen, follow us at the Struggling Hunters on Instagram. They'll see the progress, though. You know, they'll see the progress of us getting better, of us, you know, because I mean, I know for me, and there has to be people like me, like I wake up in the morning, watch the Outdoors channel, or nowadays YouTube. I still watch a little bit of Outdoors channel, but you know, I watch these hunts, and you know, they have a bunch of 30-second clips of them walking. Next thing you know, they're shooting something, you know, and they don't really talk about like, you know, what was that, a week-long trip, you know, or what kind of struggles they were having, how many times they came up short, or maybe sometimes they do, but it doesn't really resonate because you're watching a 5-minute video. And so you think it's all success. And so I kind of, you know, I mean, part of this was like just documenting that whole process of like, man, we've been struggling for a few years now, and trying to get better at this. And so, you know, I mean, we're just trying to do our best and learn as we go, and we're getting humbled along the way. But yeah, we're kind of average hunters that are trying to get better every day. So
For sure, 100%. Like, you know, I guess like Eric said before, like, you know, we've had our successes in the past, and as an as I've as you said that, and I kind of, you know, sitting here thinking over my successes I've had in the past. I've had it like, so my successes haven't come really as much of having a plan as more by, you know, like, so it was probably more 95% coincidence and 5% plan.
yeah,
You know, like okay, I'm going to go over here and sit on this rock and look down this gully because it looks like, you know, I can see a whole big area. You know, like I don't know really where the water is, but you know, it seems like there should be a deer coming through here at some point.
right,
And you know, I've never, you know, and I've talked to people, and people, you know, I've watched videos, and they're all, you know, telling what they did, what they look for, or what they don't look for, or if they even have a plan, or what they do. And you know, and now that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to get that habit of what to look for, why I'm looking for it. And you know, and it was kind of fun as we keep talking about it, but coming across that honey hole that we did, you know, because we looked all over a whole bunch of area, didn't see a whole lot of sign until we got to that honey hole, and then come across, you know, I hunted deer the next weekend. Didn't see any elk, but you know, the elk sign was there. I just didn't know where they disappeared to, because elk, that's what the difference between elk and deer is. Deer, you know, typically will stay in one area till they get pushed, but elk, you know, they got a big area that they go to feed from and go to bed to, you know, and they got the longer legs so they can cross ground easier and quicker, and you know, stuff that you take into consideration and try to learn, and trying to learn that process of ticking those boxes off Be like, okay, this is what I know what I'm looking for. This area doesn't have it. I'm moving on.
Yep.
Or, trying to create that plan is something I've never really consistently did. I just more or less was, well, I'm going to hopefully go out and bump into something.
Hunt hard until you bump into something. Hunt as hard as you can until you bump into something.
Right.
I mean,
That's kind of,
that's always been kind of my tactic too.
yeah. Like that's what as I was thinking about the hunt this last weekend, like I had different canyons I could have dropped into. Had I chose a canyon that was steeper, I could have dropped into where the elk were, but then again, I did come across a lot of sign on the side that I was on. So evidently I found their bedding area. Um, so, that was a huge learning experience. And then, I came up with a plan to drop down the gully till I came across sign. Then I probably should have dropped even further down into it, but instead I went, horizontal, or I went in the same elevation line as what the sign was in. So there's a little learning there that I can tweak a little bit for the next time,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that, so I guess in a way I found a stage, correct? Or, so the higher elevation, they're not really going to be because like I said earlier, that's where the road system is. That's where everyone parks their four-wheelers, cars, ATVs, and then they hunt down. So that's going to create, if there's anything in the area, that's going to create, pressure from the top pushing the elk down further into the canyon. And then I did come across what seemed to be their bedding areas, and so that was that wasn't in the bottom of the canyon, so that I didn't come across I didn't come across elk in between the bedding and where I parked my truck. So that tells me that I should have probably bumped down even further in the canyon and hiked that, because evidently their bedding area, I guess, they weren't coming up to bed just yet. So I either should have, I guess, waited for them to come to their bedding area if they ever would have, or dropped down further and worked my way down further into the canyon, because there's those stages where they're going to be.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's kind of always hard to. That's the afterthoughts of after you've experienced all this stuff. And
Right. And it's definitely a takeaway that I can add to the bag of tricks or the check box for the next hunt.
right, for sure. And that's a really good point. And um I would say that's probably the one downfall of moving areas too, is I mean, like you said, like you gotta leave the elk to go find new elk. But at the same time, I would do the same thing. I mean, I think for that chance to legally be able to take a bigger bull in another unit, I would probably move on to that other unit. And so it's a hard one, but it sounds like you kind of got that area that you're talking about figured out a little bit. So that, I mean, it's a toss. It's a coin toss. But, you know, I don't know. I still feel like I'd do the same thing and try to, where I could legally go take a bigger bull. That's where I would head to. And if, I probably, like, if it was my hunt, this is probably what I would do. If I ran into some elk, but it was mostly just cows and maybe a spike, right? I'd probably hold off at first for a little bit, knowing that I bumped into him, I'm there, but like I'd probably still look for that bigger bull before I just like, oh, there's a cow, take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's, you got a lot of challenges in front of you, but I'm still cheering you on. So, I mean, I think it'll happen, and I, I, I I feel like once you get it, like the questioning yourself, because I think all of this can kind of be related to like double guessing yourself. you come in with whatever plan you have, and you think, okay, I really feel like this is going to work, and then it doesn't work, and then every move that you make, you start double guessing yourself, you start questioning yourself, you kicking rocks, going, God, am I even a hunter? Like, I mean, that's what it all kind of breaks down to, and I do it every year. I mean, every year I get so mad I don't want to hunt no more, and then
True.
September comes around, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'll give her another shot.
Yeah,
So,
but we definitely come a long ways as far as how to think of more for elk and deer.
yeah, I feel
We
like it's
haven't
all gonna
gotten
pay. Yeah, I feel like it's all gonna pay off sooner than later. So I feel pretty good about it.
yeah.
Hey, I got one quick question. We could probably start wrapping this up here pretty soon. I don't know how long this one's ran on. I didn't really pay
We're
attention.
coming up on an hour.
Okay. So your sister asked the question because in episode 18 we were talking about you getting a cot for the camping trip, and thanks Becca for the shout out. But she asked if how did the cot work out. So my question to you, let me get the question exactly right. Okay, did the cot make all the difference? So was your sleep better? Uh,
I'd say yes. It was better. I had a 3-inch or 2 and 3 inch foam pad I put down on it. I slept good. It was kind of nice, not like not rolling over to get up from the ground. You can actually set your feet down and put your boots on that way. But it was nice. Not to you didn't have to worry about that random rock or that divot or something. That you forgot to pick out when you put up the tent. But
oh man, how many times has that happened over the years?
a lot.
I swear, yeah, I swear every time I'm like, oh, this spot is good to lay down the tent, and then you lay down the tent, you put your bedding down, and then you're like, where'd that rock come from?
Right.
Keep rolling on it all night long. So, nah, that's a good point. I definitely love my cot. When we start doing backcountry hunts, it's gonna be hard to. That's gonna be a tough one.
Yeah, we'll have to hire some kid to come just pack our cots in for us.
yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Or maybe we can get some pack mules to so they can haul everything in,
True. That's a good idea.
haul in the canvas tent, the cots. Might not be a bad way to go.
That would be kind of fun in a way. I think you kind of go. It's nice to have comforts. Then like you kind of go in a way thinking about hunting, and you're just going back to camp to sleep to turn around and go again. But yeah, like you kind of, I think it'll be fun to be able to load up, some mules or something, and go back in the back country and have, a nice comfortable cot or a nice comfortable camp, and then just spend a week or something back in there,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's, just by yourself, that's got to be a little bit surreal, like knowing that you're hours or miles to civilization.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty fun. That'd be a fun way to do it too, though. But there is something to be said about that too. Is like being able to have a comfortable night's sleep. You know, like me and you, we kind of do more base camp style hunts, but as of right now, but um, it's nice. We've kind of invested some money over the last few years on trying to make it a little more comfortable at base camp for sleep, and I'm not complaining. I mean, being able to sleep all night without a rock being wedged in your back all night. I mean, it's makes a difference for the next day. And so yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. I got one more question, then we'll get off here. So if you in your opinion, if you're starting somebody off with a bow, and I understand that it might be different for everybody, or everybody has their own reasonings, but if you were starting somebody off with a bow, would you do sights and a sight of some sort, or sights and the I can't remember what the
So
kisser,
the kisser button and stuff.
yeah.
Like it kind of goes. There's you got some logic and reasoning behind everything. Uh, there's the whole how's the new shooter, how well do they comprehend what's going on with the bow? Do they comprehend how everything works? Eventually, so like I started out without sights. Like my bow, my first compound bow had sights, but I never took the time to really set it up. My first bow was a recurve bow when I was a kid, and I got to where I was pretty good at just aiming my bow and shooting. But if the bow has the capabilities to put stuff on it, like eventually if you're going to get into it, hunting or whatnot, you're probably going to move to sights, because sights help with the distance side of things. And so you're going to eventually going to start using them, but at the same time, if whoever is trying to learn how to shoot, there's a lot you got going on. You got your sight you're using, you got a peep sight if you can put one in the string, and then you got a little kisser button that you can put in or install on the string that help you bring everything back to the same point every time to release the arrow. Do you get a release or not? Like a release might be kind of different to get used to, because you got that little the little trigger button thing to use, whereas if you got your fingers, you just let go. So if there's a lot going on, so just to keep it simple for the first little bit, you just use your string and your arrow, and just learn how to sight shoot without or whatever. I can't remember the proper
Terminology.
But so I guess I'll break it down, try to make it even simpler. If eventually you're going to use sights, I'd say start off with sights if your bow's capable of it. As far as a trigger goes or a release, I wouldn't be too worried about it, just because it's one more thing that you got to learn how to use when you're trying to learn how to use the bow. So and then besides that, it's you want to start as basic as possible, so you can add building blocks on top of it and make it a fun experience too.
Yeah.
If you're trying to learn a whole bunch of new stuff on this new thing you have, it's not going to be all that fun.
Right.
So the simpler you can keep it, the funner I'm sure it'll be.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of a broad thing to say, but at the same time, you want to keep it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, keep it simple, keep it fun. Just those kid bows, they don't really come with a whole lot, and sights are one of them. So
yeah, well, I mean, there's something to be said too about learning to shoot a bow without sights. That it took me a second to learn to adjust my eyes to using a sight the last couple of years, because I was shot growing up. When we lived in Vegas, my dad would take me and my brother out shooting archery, shooting bows quite a bit. And I never had sights on my bow, but I got to where, I could go back to a different yardage and I could hit a paper plate.
Yeah.
And so when I finally started using the sight, like I was used to looking at it, looking down the arrow a certain way to be able to, to aim the bow. And then when I started using the sight, I had to like mentally reposition everything to and make sure, like I wasn't setting up to shoot how I used to shoot. It changed it a little bit, but
what kind of arrow rests do you have? Do you have with the whisker biscuits, or do you have
no,
the?
I got one. I can't remember the actual name of it, but it's like a 3-point system. It has these two like brushes that set up top, has a gap in the center, and then it has a one brush in the bottom of it. And so you set your arrow up so the top fletching goes in between the top two.
And that's always your off-colored one, right?
Yeah, yeah. So and I glue the nocks and everything, so that's how it sets up.
Gotcha. Is there a reason for why the colored one is always up, or is it just like a help
Uh,
guide the?
yeah, just to help guide us a distinction. Because if you have all three colors, and you're trying to fumble around throwing an arrow onto your bow, and you have all the three colors, you're going to have to sit there and look at it and decide which, because they're kind of a different spacing. And so you have to find where that spacing is just right to be able to put your arrow in so that way as you shoot it across your rest, that the arrow doesn't deflect the fletching doesn't deflect the arrow.
Right.
Off the flight pattern.
So I feel like if you have a whisker biscuit rest, it'd probably be good to have sights on. But if you had the prawn, or I don't know, I'm gonna call it the prawn sight or the prawn rest, you could probably use more of the arrow.
Probably. I've never used a whiskey biscuit or a whisker biscuit.
You must be getting tired tonight. We better we better let you go here soon.
But so I couldn't really say for sure. But you got to be able to see the arrow in order to, if you don't have sights, to be able to place it where you want it to go.
Yeah. I tried it the other day though, and I don't know that whisker, but I was like, you just can't really see where you're aiming because you can't see the tip of the arrow or nothing, So, but I'm not.
Too, it all depends on how you're setting. If you're pulling your arrow up at your eye level, like you might not be able to see it, but if you have it down a little bit lower, where you're pulling to the bottom of your chin or something, you might be able to see over the top of it. But I'm not sure. I've never used one, so I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say just throw sights on. I think it'd be easier. At least it'll give you a little bit better of a reference.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then if you have someone help set up the sights too, so that way.
Yeah.
But if nothing wrong with just letting the arrow sit on there, and as long as they're pointing at a target, letting it fling and letting them try to figure out how to hold that bow to hit the target.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now you got a good point.
Well, I think I'm done.
yeah. This was kind of a long-winded podcast. We've been trying to shorten them up a little more than this, but I guess we had a lot to talk about this week. So, Joe, I'll let you get us out of here if you want.
Sure. Well, thanks for listening to the Struggling Hunters. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to our struggles. We know you're probably struggling too, and hopefully your struggles aren't getting you down. Hopefully, you're pulling through the struggles and motivating yourself or finding ways to motivate. But keep pushing through. There's always going to be some struggle. We're still learning here, but thanks for listening. Go ahead and like, subscribe, follow us, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hopefully you're having fun. If not, sorry, but we'll talk to you guys later. We'll sign off. I'm Joe.
And I'm Eric. Y'all have a good one. Struggling Hunters are out.